Hi, my friends. I'm so glad you're here today. I have someone who's so aligned with what we talk about and what we share, and that is Simone. Welcome, Simone. I'm glad you're here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah. Simone is coming from us. We were just talking about this from Sarasota, which is one of my all time favorite places. I lived there in my early 20s, mostly because my grandparents moved there.
Mm,
I wanted to be close to them and help them out. And it just has beautiful beaches and the golf is just so gorgeous where you live.
yeah, it's beautiful here. And it's funny because most people I talk to that have a connection to Sarasota, it's either their grandmother lives here or their great aunt lives here.
Yeah. I
So,
could say
but
when
there
I
are
lived
younger people too.
Yeah. Well, when I lived there in my early 20s, I used to be like, I think I might be the youngest person here.
Yeah.
But I did find a lot of other people there. So, yeah, what a beautiful area. So, we always start with like sharing our story and your journey. I know you have a method called the real method, and I'd love to know what your journey was to get you to find that method. And then maybe we can go into the method itself.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, I was someone that struggled with self doubt my entire life. I'm 53 now. So, it was really until I was in my 40s that I just kind of pushed things aside, put up this facade, and really didn't didn't take self-care seriously, didn't take a lot of things seriously because I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And it started and I think that for everyone when we look at why we doubt ourselves, there's usually some point in time where someone said something to you, something happened to you where you're like, "Oh, this is it," right? And for me, it was I had an abusive boyfriend in high school. And I kind of stuffed it down for many years. I didn't talk about it. I mean, my husband knew about it, my kids knew about it, but I didn't talk about it openly. But what I realized was that I never really addressed it. And so I just felt a lot of shame about it. And so that just led to years of not thinking that I was enough. And so then well, it's been 10 years now. In 2015, I was invited to do something completely out of my comfort zone, and I said yes. And what I said yes to was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm not a climber, I live in Florida, but it really was a life changing moment for me because I realized what I was capable of. And I didn't just set the goal, but I put in the work. And I think that's a big part of all the things that we do. And so that journey made me think back to say, okay, what did I do? What are the aspects? What are the things that I had to focus on to be able to move forward? And that's how the real method came about.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we all hit those places in our life where we have to overclimb that mountain, whether it's an actual mountain,
Mm,
something in your life that happens. I know there was a time in my life when I was battling cancer, but I was also doing my student teaching, and the seniors climbed a mountain every year, and I climbed that mountain with them, and it was just, at such a time, like it was really, really hard. And the cancer was really hard, but going up to the top and seeing the end result was just beautiful. So
hmm
just meshing those two together. Yeah,
And
great.
when I climbed with, there were 16 of us. We climbed with the Livestrong Foundation, so raising money for cancer research, etc. And everybody on that trip was either a cancer survivor or climbing in honor of somebody who had either passed or was fighting. And so it made it that much more special and important in my life.
Yeah, definitely. And so that brought you to this real method. Do you want to explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah, so it's really about building confidence. So for me, I thought for a long time that confidence was either something you had or you didn't. It wasn't something that you could build. And now what I've realized, it's a skill. You build it just like you build any other skill. And I think that we need to stop focusing on it like, oh my gosh, she's so confident or he's so confident. And that's not true. Even what you see on the outside may not match what's on the inside. So the goal is to build confidence from the inside out so that you feel it on the inside and you're comfortable in your skin no matter who you're with, wherever you are, that you feel good about yourself. And so the four parts to it are respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And the reason I really wanted to start with self respect is because I know for me, when I was younger, I was taught to respect my elders, my peers, teachers, grandparents, all the things. But never once do I ever remember my parents saying the most important person to respect is yourself. And I have great parents, or I had great parents, but that just wasn't part of the narrative. And I think it should absolutely be part of the narrative because if we don't respect ourselves, how do we expect anybody else to, right? If we don't learn to set boundaries, to say no, to be proud of who we are, it's really hard then to move forward in the world confidently.
Yeah, oh, that's huge. I have two young girls now, well, younger girls, and that is something really important to teach them. When you start respecting yourself, you can start listening to your bodies and your needs and your boundaries and all of that stuff. So I definitely, yeah, that is so important. And embracing failures is something that I've really tried to bring to my daughters as well, like, because we are all going to fail. I remember when they're like starting sports and they're like, we're not going to be good at that. It's okay. That's how we
Yeah.
learn. And you make mistakes and you learn. So I really appreciate that one as well.
Yeah. I think when it comes to failures, my older kids, as they were growing up, it was a time. So my oldest is 29, and you got trophies for whatever you did, right? So didn't matter if you were the worst on the team, you still got the trophy. And I understood it, but I also feel like if we don't fail when we're younger, it's even more difficult as we get older. We're not willing to take risks because, oh my gosh, what if something bad happens? And just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means
Yeah.
that didn't work for you. And take a step back, see what you learned, see what you want to do differently moving forward. But it doesn't mean don't try again. And I think that's where people end up is that they're so afraid to fail that they're not even willing to try. But if you don't try, the answer is always no, right? And I say this to my kids all the time that if you don't ask, most people really do want to help. But if you
Mhm.
don't ask, the answer is already no. It's always going to be no.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is asking for your want is your next one. And I know as I was growing up, I was a very, very independent person. Maybe because I was brought up by a single mom, but I was definitely very independent and didn't ask anybody for help. And then when I went through my cancer and my Crohn's, I was telling you I have Crohn's like your daughter. I had to really learn to ask for help because
Hmm.
I couldn't do everything anymore. And that's a very hard ask, but like you said, so many people are like, "Yes, I'm so glad you asked. I am here. I am ready to help."
Yeah. And
Mm.
in that third part, the ask yourself what you want, I think that especially as moms, and this applies to everyone, not just moms, but we have done so many years of focusing on everyone else. I even will be sitting at dinner and I'll have like one last bite of food and I'll say to my daughter, "Do you want it?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, stop. Like, eat your own food. You don't need to give me everything." And we get so caught up in that we haven't asked ourselves what we want. So you see a lot of women who just kind of don't move forward in things because they don't know what they want anymore. They've kind of lost themselves. And, it's really a process to go back and say, what interests me, and not worry about failing at anything. But if I could do anything tomorrow, and there were no limits, what would it be? And it is a hard question. I had women who, when I climbed Kilimanjaro, they said, "Oh, I could never do that." And my response was always, "Well, would you want to?" And they're like, "No, I wouldn't want to do that." Okay, well, that's the question, right? And that's the way you say it because as soon as you say you could never, you're limiting yourself instead of saying, "I don't want to do that." Like, that's setting a boundary. I don't want that.
Right, because we can all do everything if we really wanted to and put our mind to it. But yeah, having the boundary of what you want and what you don't want and what feels comfortable for you. And that kind of brings you to the living without limits. Tell me more about that one because that is, I think, what we strive for and what we want our kids to strive for.
Yeah, I think there's really two parts to it. One is that we limit ourselves on a daily basis, right? We tell ourselves that we're not good enough, we're not capable enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skinny enough, all of these things that we're putting on ourselves. And trust me, society does it too, right? But then we start playing that comparison game. So imagine a life where you didn't limit yourself or that you didn't listen to what society was saying. How much happier would you be? And that's really the goal is to kind of go through and say, okay, and one of the big things I like to talk about is that most people, when they describe themselves, will use the word just. So I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just a fifth grade teacher. I'm just whatever. I'm just Rob's wife. Whatever it is, because they're justifying who they are, which is so ridiculous because all the things that we do, that makes up who we are. So why not just say, I am a stay at home mom and take ownership and be proud of it? Because as soon as we start using that word just, it really makes us feel bad about ourselves like we're not enough. So I'm very particular about how we use words because our brain believes them. The more we say things to ourselves, the more we start to believe it. So why not say the good things to ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. We often forget that. So I like that reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have a podcast about your about confidence, about being unshakable. It's called Her Unshakable Confidence that you do with your daughter. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we started it 2 years ago and we would always just have these great conversations. And so we started doing Instagram lives and then we were like, why don't we start a podcast, right? We feel like we bring a different perspective having a mother-daughter conversation. You don't see a whole lot of those out there, especially with a 22-year-old who is figuring out her way. We originally started it as the Daughter Dearest podcast, but what we realized is because I'm all about building confidence, is that the goal is for her to build unshakable confidence. So that's why we titled it like that. Now, we talk about all kinds of different topics on there. It's not always about confidence. But what's interesting is so we do an episode every other week, just the two of us. And then obviously the next week is with a guest. And when we ask the guest, like, what does confidence mean to you? Every single person has given a different answer. And so I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I want to compile it all into like this is why confidence is a skill and you build it because you're not supposed to end up at the same place. It's supposed to be individual to you. So it's really been fun. And I think for her, she's starting her second year in law school. And she was actually saying last year how much it improved her confidence, but also her ability to stand up in front of class, to raise her hand when she didn't understand something, or if she had disagreed with what was happening, she would be able to speak up and say, "Hey, this is not. I'm not seeing it the same way. Can we discuss this?" Which is huge at that age. I mean, I got married at 21. I've been married for 32 years, but I didn't use my voice like that back then. So
Yeah. So that lets me wonder at your age right now, your season in life, what does confidence mean for you right now?
for me, it's being able to be exactly who I am. Doesn't matter who I'm with or where I am. So if there's a big fancy event, and I had to learn this, right? And I'm not a kind of like, trust me, I'll be respectful and wear a fancy dress to something that I need to, but I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of girl. Right now, I'm a leggings and actually sweatpants because of my shoulder injury. It's very hard to get pants up. But I also don't want to pretend I'm somebody else. I've had this facade up for had a facade up for 40 years, pretending that I was super strong and I had it all together. And, I didn't even cry for a really long time because everybody expected me to be a certain way. And that's what I thought I had to do. So it really is about just being exactly who you are, not changing yourself for anyone else. And for some people, they don't really know who they are yet because they have pretended for so long. And it took me a long time to kind of grow into my skin and say, I am happy exactly as I am. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I don't think anybody else is really even thinking about it. So, like when I walk into a room and I'm wearing a pair of jeans, are they really saying, oh, gosh, I can't believe she's wearing jeans? I don't think they're thinking about it. Like we put so much pressure on ourselves that we have to do things a certain way where we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be judged. And most people aren't even what you ask them the next day, they don't remember what you wore.
And if anything, it might seem judgy, but it's because they want to wear the jeans and they're like,
Yeah.
why did I not think of that?
Yeah. I went to a party right after COVID and invited by the fanciest person I know. And I knew everybody was going to be fancy. And I said to my daughter, like, I just don't want to wear that. Like, that's just not me. And she's like, so don't wear it. And so I literally had to send her a photo of myself and jeans and cute sneakers and a blazer. And she's like, "You look great. Get out the door." And so one of the things I use, and of course I got there and met really nice women, and I had a few women that said, "Oh, I love that you're wearing jeans." One said, "I would have worn jeans, but I didn't know we were allowed to." And I was like, that was a great reminder that we don't need permission to be who we are. And I have this little kind of cheaty gimmick that I use when I call it Control Alt Delete when I start getting those negative thoughts in my head. So for that instance, it was, oh my gosh, I'm going to be judged for wearing jeans, and all these women are going to be so fancy, and I don't fit in. And I was like, okay, control is really about controlling your thoughts. Not saying that you can control what goes into your head, but you can control what you believe, right? So as soon as those negative thoughts come in, you're like, this is not real. This is a story. The next thing is about alt, which is changing it. So instead of saying, I can't, how about I can? Or, excuse me, when, what if I fail? How about when I succeed, right? And again, the brain, there's tons of science on this. The more you speak kindly to yourself, the more positive affirmations you do, you believe it. Your brain starts to believe it. And the last thing is delete, which is delete the things that don't serve you anymore. I mean, if you think about it like a computer, right? If there's a file that's taking them all, up all the space, what do? You close it out, you delete it because you don't need it. And so I say that about the thoughts that you have in your head, or even people around you that are really negative. It's really about kind of bringing that balance back. And so that's my little cheat when I get into those negative thoughts, because we're still going to get them. Doesn't matter how confident we are. We're still going to have those negative thoughts going through our head.
I love that cheat.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm gonna remember that. So my podcast is called Nurture Herself, and it's about taking care of ourselves, our mind, our body, and our souls. And so I ask everyone who comes on here, what is something that you do every day? Maybe a small habit, maybe a small strategy that you use every day to nurture yourself.
So the biggest thing I do is positive affirmations. So I do them every morning. I do I am statements, and I really have found that to be so effective for me. So depends on what I'm going to do, but I'm going to crush this. I look amazing. However I'm feeling in the moment, things that I think I might struggle with, then I use those, and they really make a difference for me. I would have said 10 years ago that those things don't work. Come on. But again, it's a regular practice. It's just like building confidence, right? You have to do things on a regular basis. I've had people say, "Well, I tried affirmations and they don't work." Well, how often did you try them? Well, once. Okay, right? I mean, did you learn Spanish in a day? Did you go to the gym and get buff in a day, right? But it's
Yes.
funny how people will, say that to me. I'm like, "Why don't you try it for 60 to 90 days and then tell me how you feel?" And it really does make a difference. I also do evening gratitudes because I think that that's a way to center myself too, to say at the end of the day, there is always something to be grateful for. Even if it's the crappiest day, there's always something to be grateful for. So those are my two big things that I like to do every day.
Yeah, and then your mind, when you are giving yourself gratitude and gratitude for your day, that's something that your mind is like, oh, that's important to her. I'm gonna keep looking for those things. So, your
Yeah.
affirmations, do you say those? Do you write them? Do you pin them up somewhere?
So I say them. I used to have a kind of decal on my mirror in my bathroom. My kids used to call them, or because they don't, they're so used to it now, but they used to call 'em mirror moments. And yeah, they're like, oh, there she goes again, talking to herself in the mirror. But I think the mirror is really important because you can look at yourself in the eye. And so you're not just saying it randomly, you are looking at yourself. So for me, it works better because then I tend to believe it more, right? I can see the things that I'm talking about. A lot of people like to write them down. They will just say them out loud, or they'll say them inside their head. It kind of really depends on what works for you. But for me, saying in front of a mirror, I used to get really creative because at first I was like, this is embarrassing. Oh, this isn't going to work. And so then I would use my toothbrush as a microphone and kind of make it more fun. And now it's just regular practice because I know how much it's changed my life that I can just say it wherever I am and not feel, you know,
Yeah.
bad about like, oh, this is weird. This is not weird. It's so important. And you see it, like you see professional athletes and you see celebrities, like a rock star before they go on stage, like they talk themselves up because it works.
Yeah. And how special for your kids to be able to see that and from a young age know that that's something that you can do. You can talk good to yourself.
Yeah. And I didn't for a long time. I mean, I have my daughter that I do the podcast with, there was when she was 15, she walked in, I was in the bathroom and I was being so hard on myself. I had gained weight. I was going to this women's event. I didn't fit into my clothes and she walked in, she said, "First of all, you're beautiful. You need to stop being so hard on yourself. And second, you're giving me a complex. How do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own?" And I was like, "Oh,
That
dagger
hit.
to the heart." Yeah, because it wasn't just affecting me, right? I mean, I talk so much about how our words affect us, but when your kids see that every day, that's the same thing that they're going to think that I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, right? So if you do it the other way and they feel comfortable being able to tell themselves that they look good and they're ready for this job, all the different things, then it makes such a difference. And so that was a big kind of eye-opening moment for me. And that was really when I kind of started okay, how you talk to yourself is so important. And that's where positive affirmation started.
I love that. Yeah, it's so important. Raising two girls, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
They're watching us and they're listening to us and seeing what we do to ourselves, trying to figure out how to be to themselves. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I really talk about the idea of kitchen table leadership that, a lot of times we think that the person who's a leader is the CEO, they're in the boardroom, all those things. But the decisions we make every day, those are leadership decisions, right? And part of a leadership decision is that modeling matters more than managing, right? If that old do as I say, not as I do. Like, I mean, come on. Yeah. I used to say that. I think my parents used to say that to me too, but it's not real because it doesn't work. Like your kids are they see what you do and that's what they're going to follow. And that's why I think it's so important that we recognize our potential so that our kids can recognize theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I have so many things that I'm taking from this and so many things I'm going to bring back into my real life. I know that my audience will as well. So thank you for taking time and sharing all your thoughts with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here.
All right. And to all of you out there listening, I will have the links below to the podcast and everywhere else where you can become part of Simone's world. And like I always say, choose yourself. And I love you. We'll talk next week.